Welcome back, South Philly Sauce, an Audacy original brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels, Ashlyn, Sullivan, Al Morganti. We hope everyone had a very Merry Christmas. We were talking before the podcast, George almost bit my grandfather at Christmas. It's just, per usual, the holidays. Everyone has some family drama, but we hope everyone had a very Merry Christmas, and we have a lot to talk about with this Flyers team. A disappointing way to enter the holiday break after a great overtime win over Columbus at the Wells Fargo Center. You're feeling great. And we said, if only they could beat the Penguins. Going into the holiday break, you feel really good about this team. Well, the complete opposite happens. They lost big time, 7-3 to the Penguins. And they had just lost to the Kings a week before that with the same score. But that game, you're like, oh, wait, the score doesn't really depict how the game went, right? Well, that Penguins game, it was a 7-3 loss. They got completely outplayed the entire game. And now you definitely have a lot to turn around coming back.
Yeah, it wasn't a good way to go on the Christmas break, that's for sure, because it was there's some slippage, I guess you'd call it, in the game. You can't panic when a team's expectations aren't like to go to win the Stanley Cup. That's too strong a word, but there's concerns over how you're going to navigate through this rest of the season here. The Penguins lost. Some of the signs that came in were, goaltending again, goaltender swap. It's like power play. Michkov kind of cooled off a little bit, a lot. And it's like, okay, well, what now? Do we redefine our expectations? Were we thinking way ahead of ourselves here, some of the fans? So, I mean, that was a painful loss to me. And for the regular, Crosby just lights you up. Basically he used, he used the Flyers as his Christmas tree, just lit them up. and it was to just, he's seen it time and time again. And you want to mention, he's a great player, this, that, the other thing, sets his a record. It ties a Lemieux mark here in Pittsburgh against the Flyers. But there's no looking at the other side right now. It's like, okay, how are we going to fix this? Or can we fix this? Is this, as John Tortorella and the management staff keep telling you, we have to find out what we have. And now you start to worry, maybe they don't have as much as they thought.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot to work on. That ending, I'm telling you, I never thought after early in the year and seeing Michkov that at Christmas and going into New Year's, the storyline would still be the power play. I just couldn't imagine that it's still a huge problem. It's like, you this red light was on in the car and you never went to fix it. You got to fix this. At least make it, if it doesn't score, at least get some chances. And a lot of it is Michkov. I'm not buying the Michkov thing as much as John Tortorella is. I think you should run it through him anyway. I just,
he's the best you
I
got.
wonder about, is this being coached the right way? Is this, or is it so in their head, it's, that they can't get out of their own way here? I just see too many pieces that you think should work here. Drysdale, certainly, he came in, they tried him. They do keep moving things around. That might be part of the issue. I just want them to get opportunities in it. I'm stunned that with what looked like great chemistry with Michkov and Konechny and Drysdale's ability to move across the blue line, that this thing can't be any better.
Yeah, everything really has gone cold, and especially through social media this week. I think it really all sparked from Detroit firing their head coach. That's a team that just beat the Flyers, a week ago, 6-4. And I'm seeing a lot on social media about, frankly, wanting a coaching change here with the Flyers. And I've never believed in that. I think when you look at this team, and I think a lot of times we see it, for example, with Pittsburgh or really any high caliber team, just the difference in talent. And I understand that the power play should be working better with the personnel that you have. But you look at this roster, and I just don't think this is a coaching problem. We knew that the Flyers are really far away. I think we got a little ahead of ourselves at the beginning of the season. It's almost like kind of everything has come back down to earth, sadly, where it's kind of supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't look at the Detroit thing as why wouldn't the Flyers do it, especially head coach. Now, if you're going to talk about maybe changing who runs a power play or something, yeah, I can understand that.
For sure.
But as far as the head coach, like Detroit went out, Detroit did what the Flyers say they're not going to do. Let's go add a free agent or add a big name, and that accelerate where we're supposed to be. and they went and added a couple of times, and they're not where they're supposed to be. Yeah. Now that's a different story. If the Flyers had gone out and signed Patrick Kane and nothing gets any better, the power play is getting, then it's like, whoa, then what you have there is a president or a manager covering their behind by laying it on the coach that I gave you these pieces. Well, that's not what's happened here. Exactly the opposite's happened here. Instead of their road to recovery, if you will, their development of players dictates that they send a guy like Andre down to get more time, put somebody else in so they can get a look and see what they have. Live with Frost's mistakes. See if Forster comes along. So this, to me, is, I don't know how you can possibly look at this and say, well, we need a head coaching change. But I can say, well, let's get another look on this power play somehow. And then, there are teams that Edmonton can struggle on a power play. Mm-hmm. But this isn't 1 year. This is like, this is an annual thing now. Yeah,
it feels like ever since I moved to Philly. This is
maybe it's you.
Maybe it's you. Yeah, maybe it's you.
It's your fault.
Needless to say, it's not very promising right now with the Flyers. And I want to say it gets tougher, but I really don't think it does, because the Flyers have played so well on the road, so much better than they have at home. Even Torts said he wants to get this team back on the road to get them refocused. And this is a road trip of all road trips coming up their West Coast swing: Anaheim, LA, San Jose, Vegas, Toronto, goes through January 6th. So a very big road trip here coming up against some tough teams, but we've seen the Flyers succeed in this situation. So I'm not definitely counting them out in this way. Yeah,
this is a grind, this one. Anaheim, although you look at their record, but I mean, they have they've got Gudis and now Trouba on defense. So you got to get through that. And of course, you got the Gauthier. Yeah, they got the Gauthier thing going on. It's like, wow. I mean, if you're coming right out of the Christmas break and those two, Trouba and Gudis, I mean, oh my Lord, you could just to get through that. They're not a great team, obviously. They're a rebuild, but they've got some pieces, man. That McTavish, I mean, they really have. To me, they're a little bit ahead of the Flyers in terms of the way they're building their skilled players there. Their goaltender's been better than expected. So, I mean, I think this is, I guess you could look at it one of two ways. I think it's a tough way to start, because to me, it's a pretty tough place to be with what they've done. They just beat Utah, and Utah was hot, and they get some energy from adding a player. To me, it's like, people will look at it and say, well, the Flyers have to win this one, and they're not that much better, if you will. It's an understandable, if you go in, it's going to be a tough game. And then you move up in California, and that's a good team. And then, San Jose, this is going to be interesting, the Michkov Celebrini thing. Mm-hmm. Man, this is a really tough road trip. Yeah. So this is either going to get you right, or it's going to point out things that you have to just deal with. To me, by the end of this road trip, I hope you know about the goaltending, because that's issue number. When they were ahead of schedule early this year, it's because their goaltenders, even though their raw numbers weren't that good, they were actually pretty good in keeping the game in range, and you can get there. But that's not been the case the last few games. And the which is a problem, just even saying two backups is like, well, why you continue to do this? I mean, they keep saying they have, one Kolosov's the guy, but still carrying a guy. So, I mean, those guys played above expectations for a while, which is why they could win. I don't know if this is the level that they're at, in which case, man, they have a couple of backup goaltenders that look like they need time in the American League or a minor league to get going. And Ersson hasn't been as good as he was last year, at least in this stretch of games. Yeah. They're really depending on him. From injury. Yeah, they're depending on him to come to go find that level again, and he should be depending on that to earn that kind of that statement that I'm a starting goaltender in the NHL. No worries about it. To me, right now, he slipped a lot.
Yeah. He definitely has slipped, especially the past month coming back from that groin injury. He hasn't looked the same. And to me, that's why I always thought maybe that is why they're keeping two goaltenders because I feel like they don't feel solidified with Sam Ersing quite yet because his slippage has been incredibly noticeable the past month. And that leads us to kind of new hopes, New Year's resolutions with this team. I think the goaltending is a huge one that you just brought up, but I just think they got to get back to what we saw at the beginning of the year. That's a couple of things. That's Michkov getting back on track with this power play and getting back to that point streak and just looking more confident. Travis Konechny, that's a guy that we haven't talked about in a really long time, that playmaker ability that we haven't really seen. You feel encouraged by the Tippett's, the Frost, the Noah Cates, but if the Flyers want to get where they want to be, which is where they were last year, which you're in the conversation the whole second half of the season, TK's got to get going, Michkov's got to get going, and your goaltending has to be more solidified.
Yeah, you got your two guys that are going to the Four Nations have to have two of the three, actually three. When you look at it, Konechny and Sanheim was so good early, hasn't been. Maybe you just get used to him being on the ice all the time, whatever, but those guys have to be game changers. And Ristolainen, changing defensive partners, he hasn't been as effective since they've kind of made the moves on defense. So there's three guys there that you're really counted on. And those are critical. Your whole defense, York has to be more consistent. I know he's coming off an injury, and that could be part of it. Yeah. But the game changer, and this is why this Anaheim game is so interesting, could be Drysdale. When you look at, you swap a guy for Drysdale, didn't want to be in Philadelphia. If he can be a young, really good defenseman that can run a power play, that can, offensive, we've seen what he can do. He's made some hellacious mistakes over the last horrible mistakes and turnovers, but they stick with him. And part of that is, there's, I don't know, let's call it politics, but when you make a big move and you bring a guy in, you want to give him every opportunity. And he was, went through a bit of an injury, now comes out of it. He's always been kind of injury prone, but now it looks like he's healthy. He's a short-term, long-term question. And he could certainly help in the short term this year. But to me, for a team that's looking for where are we in the future, I got to find out if he's a big piece of it.
Yeah,
I have to find out how good he can be. Can he be a 3, a 2, whatever? I need to find that out. So he's a critical piece of this. The goaltending, we've lived through it so many times. There's not much. Not much. But the defense, I have to see. What have I got? I know I've got Sanheim now. I'm hoping that York makes that. So I've got two pretty big, question marks there on what I have, because Zubris doesn't look as good as he did early. And that's where this team, when it was originally put together, or what the plan was there, was you work your way out, goaltending, defense, then up front. Up front, Michkov comes over okay. But your goaltending got dealt a severe blow with the Hart situation. And now your defense, you really got to know what's going on here. So although the eyes will be on here, a lot of eyes will be on the World Juniors to see the Flyers kids there, see what they're doing with Team Canada, and see how they're playing. So that's they got an eye on one side and then an eye on the future the other way. So it's a pretty big road trip for just this season, and also for who's going to be a part of this going forward.
Yeah, a lot of questions that need to be answered the second half of the year, and we'll see what happens. I don't think any of us can predict what's going to happen, but with the Flyers, it's always exciting. We know that much. Thanks for tuning into South Philly Sauce, an Audacy original, brought to you by 94 WIP. And Jack Daniels will be back early next week to recap this big weekend slate of games. We'll talk to you soon.